Testing. Hi. Testing. Testing. Can you hear me? Okay. Testing. There are two letters in my life in which I would consider to be the most important and defining moments of my life. One of them is this. This letter contains the affirmation of my hard work for the past 18 years of my life. It reflects the fruits of the time, effort, and soul that I have poured into my studies. And the words that embodied this paper became the testimony of my academic potential. Within this envelope is the official letter from my dream university inviting me to interview at their school. It was a university that I have envisioned myself going for years. A university that I have created dreams and visions for. A drive that made me leap out of bed every single morning to work hard. If you look at this visual over here, only about 40% of all applicants to this highly competitive university ever got invited to the interview each year. And with this invitation, I'm only a step away from being accepted into my dream university. How big of a deal is this? Well, to me, it meant everything. Now, this other letter that I have here, I think, is equally, if not more important than the letter that I just shared with you guys. And I will be revealing what it is towards the end of my talk. But today, I want to talk about successes and failures. While there are all kinds of successes and failures in the world, as philosophers and scholars would categorize, the distinction between success and failure is universal and difficult to miss. And I'm going to prove my point right here, right now. But to prove my point, I'm going to need a bit of a participation from you guys. I have prepared two statements, which will come up here on the big screen one at a time. If you agree to the statement, please give me a show of hands. And if you don't, please keep your hands down. Is everybody ready? Okay, the first statement I have for you guys is this. I look up to people who succeed. Okay, I see that a lot of you have raised your hand. My second statement for you is this. I look up to people who fail. Okay, some of you still raise your hands, but it's significantly less than my first statement. My questions were broad and overgeneralized, but it proves my point. People often talk about successes in a positive and admirable way, as it should be. We look at these successes and are inspired by the possibility that we can one day achieve similar heights of success. But when we talk about failures, our attitude towards it unconsciously and unanimously shifts. We view it as a negative thing, one that we tend to avoid getting ourselves into because it uncovers our flaws, inability, or incompetency. And as humans, when we proceed through different stages in life, especially throughout adulthood, when we face the harshness of society every single day, we will increasingly face an obstacle that is commonly associated with failures: rejections. Rejections are painful, and they're brutal, but they are inevitable. At some point in our lives, we will face rejection. I think it is important for us to adjust our lenses in the way that we view rejections for two reasons. The first reason is that we will face rejections again and again and again in no identifiable patterns throughout our lives. And this is crucial because each time we face rejection, it actually causes an emotional wound. In fact, in multiple experiments conducted, brain activity in people who experience rejection and brain activity in people who experience physical pain was compared. And in the functional MRI scans, it was found that the same regions of the brain lit up. Looking at this image here, you will see that rejection, in this case, a social rejection of a heartbreak, reacts similarly to a toothache, which is the pain that humans physically experience. Because in both these scenarios, the anterior insula of the brain shows activation and response. In other words, research has found that rejection fires up pain response in the brain the same way a physical pain would have. The second reason why I think it is important for us to address our lenses in the way that we view rejection is that if we do not learn to deal and process it properly, we will miss out on the values of rejections while still causing emotional damage to ourselves in vain. Now, I'm not here to tell you the exact formula about how to deal with rejections and how to optimize the value gained from these painful challenges in life, because I don't think there's a perfect single way to overcome them. People deal with life experiences differently, and I'm not going to stand here and pretend I know a whole lot about it. After all, I'm just an 18-year-old high school senior who has yet to step into the arena of adulthood and society. If anything, this speech serves as a reminder and encouragement to myself more than it does for you guys. But what I can share with you is my personal experience. As you may have gathered from the past few minutes of my speech, I ultimately did not get into my dream university. I was rejected post-interview. The rejection was a kind of emotional wound that cut deep into my flesh. And thinking back now, it still hurts. The visions and desires of going to the university have constantly occupied my thoughts for the past 3 years. And the pressure and intensity that I have placed upon myself to even getting an invitation to interview all seems to come shattering down into millions of pieces. Over the next few months after the rejection, I felt lost. The truth was, after a lot of reflection and thought, I realized that I was so fixated on my goal of being accepted to my dream university that I have missed out on other options that were probably more suited for me. The prestige and fantasized thoughts of going to the university has simply blinded me. And the aftermath of the rejection left me questioning a lot of things in life. And I struggle a lot internally. During this period of time was when I really started to gain a deeper understanding of myself. And this spurred a growth in maturity and mindset. Since then, my interpretation of rejection has changed. While I was devastated by the rejection, the 9-letter word does not mean failure for me. Instead, this is the new equation that I have created for myself. You see, for me, rejection no longer means failure. Instead, for me, rejection and failure can allow for redirection and growth when it is given the time and mental space to reflect. Before I end my speech, I'm going to fulfill the promise that I made earlier, which is to reveal this other letter that I have. Some of you may have guessed that this letter is the official rejection letter from my dream university. And to be honest, it is a completely reasonable guess. Have I not torn the rejection letter into pieces and chucked it into the trash from the anger and denial that I felt at the time? So what's the second letter? It is a blank piece of paper. And for me, this is the most important letter of my life, because it serves as a reminder that my life and future is not defined by a piece of rejection letter. Instead, I hold the chalk to sketch my future based on the rejections that I faced and based on the choices that I make and the redirection that I was guided towards from the rejections I faced in life. This paper symbolizes the freedom that I alone can shape my future. But what about you? Have you been letting past rejections haunt you? Have you been letting your shortcomings limit you? Have you been allowing the disappointments you felt to restrain you from your future? If so, I hope you will one day recognize your right to the blank piece of paper and hold tightly to the freedom that it grants you. Thank you.